First part of what we do is we go ahead and have a roll call to make sure that we have a quorum. John Dennis, I'm here. Kevin Underwood. Tom Murtaugh.
Present.
And Tom's here. All right, Tom. Peter Bunder, you're here. Jackson Bogan.
Present.
Shane Spears. Shane Spears.
I see.
Present. You here, Shane? Yep, I see your thing. Gotcha.
Present.
Cindy's here. Mr. Campbell. Mr. Campbell.
I doubt it.
Okay. Van Murray.
Here.
Tony's not here. I'm here. Okay, that should do. Is there anybody else who I didn't mention? All right, we'll head on out. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 8th, 2021 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
So moved, Murtaugh.
Second, Jackson.
Motion and seconded. Any questions, corrections, changes, errors? Hearing none. All in favor of the approval of the minutes, please indicate by saying aye when your name is called. John Dennis, aye. Tom Murtaugh.
Aye.
Peter Bunder.
Aye.
Jackson Bogan.
Aye.
Shane Spears.
Aye.
Cindy Murray.
Aye.
Ben Murray.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved unanimously. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2021-5, resolution to amend the fiscal year 2020-20-24 or 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. And this will be through the TIP fund, and this will be replacing the Wabash River Bridge deck. Who is the informative source on this one?
That will be me, Doug.
Thanks, Ed.
So, Mayor mentioned this request to amend the current TIP is from Tippecanoe County, and they are going to be replacing the bridge deck over the Wabash River on North 9th Street Road. Last September, the Indiana Department of Transportation released a notice of funding availability for what we call Group 4 federal funds. These are similar to our urban funds, but for rural areas. And this past March, NDOT announced the awards, and this project was chosen. The county is going to be receiving just under $6 million for construction and construction engineering. And with that, they were awarded an additional $533,306 for preliminary engineering. Interesting to note that not only will the bridge deck be replaced and will include the 2 travel lanes, but it will also include a sidewalk on one side of the bridge. This will, in the future, be a connection for the Wabash Heritage Trail that hopefully at some point will be a hard trail and be another option for those who want to walk and bike to Battleground and to the state park. The Technical Transportation Committee did review this request at last month's meeting and did recommend approval, and APC staff is also asking for your approval. Are there any questions?
Questions for Doug?
So
Hearing
Doug,
none.
there won't be, there won't be a designated bike lane?
It will be a similar design to the bridge over the Wabash River that NDOT did on Sagamore Parkway. It's only going to be 6 feet wide at this time, and if I remember correctly, it's due to the structural beams underneath in terms of carrying the load of not only the cars, but then the pedestrians and cyclists onto one side.
Okay, I just was kind of curious since, there had been that accident out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good question. Good question, Cindy. Any other questions for Doug? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. John Dennis, aye. Tom Murtaugh. Tom?
Sorry, couldn't get my mouse to cooperate. Aye.
That'll be a first. Peter Bunder.
Aye.
Jackson
Shane, your mic's on.
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Cindy Murray,
Aye.
Ben Murray.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is Resolution T-2021-6, resolution to amend the fiscal year 2020-2024 Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP plan. And I presume this will also be Doug.
That is correct. This request is from the city of West Lafayette, and they are requesting additional federal funds for the preliminary engineering phase of the Sagamore Parkway Trail. Engineering is occurring right now, and this is actually scheduled to be let for construction January next year. As you are aware, this area has a lot of interesting terrain, and with that came additional challenges in designing a trail, specifically crossing a small creek where a bridge is needed, and then also maintaining ADA compliance. Normally we would look at our existing federal funds and see if we could switch some funds around. Unfortunately, at this time, all of our federal funds are obligated. We do have some good news in that earlier this year we were given a specific or special federal funds, the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, and we received a little over $462,000. We can use those funds this fiscal year, so the request was for a portion of these funds, specifically $187,000. Now, several months ago, the Technical Transportation Committee did allocate these funds to projects, specifically the Soldiers Home Road PE project in fiscal year 2022. So when we brought this to the Technical Transportation Committee, they did recommend approval of this amendment that we use $170,000 of these funds, and then revisit and look at the allocation again, and that we did do that last month. As I mentioned, this is going to be for additional preliminary engineering because of the work that's needed. There is also another small part to this, in that in developing the environmental documentation, or we'll call NEPA review, the description of the location is a little more in depth as to what we have in the TIP and STIP. So the request was made by NDOT to actually change our description to match that in the NEPA documentation. So that is included in this amendment. Once again, the City of West Lafayette has requested $187,000 in these special federal funds for the additional preliminary engineering that's needed. The Technical Transportation Committee did review this request and recommend approval. Are any questions?
Questions for Doug? All righty. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for Resolution 2021-6.
So moved. Jackson.
A motion, need a second?
Wonderful second.
Go ahead, whoever.
Peter, was that you for a second?
Yeah, but you can pick.
You got the deeper voice. I heard that when I couldn't hear Cindy's. The motion is second. I'll go ahead and call the roll. John Dennis, aye. Tom Murtaugh,
Aye.
Peter Bunder,
Aye.
Jackson Bogan,
Aye.
Jane Spears,
Aye.
Cindy Murray,
Aye.
Ben Murray.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great,
Next item
thank
on the agenda is Resolution 2021-7, a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 22 through 26 Transportation Improvement Plan. And I presume this will also be Deb.
That's correct. This is a project that we've been working on since last October in developing a new and updated transportation improvement program. At the beginning of the project, we sent out a request for projects and funding amounts. We took those and went through the process and allocated our federal funds. We did this several times, first back in January, and then after that, when we received news of the additional funds from the Coronavirus Relief Act, and then just last month, due to the change and request for additional funds for preliminary engineering for the Sagamore Parkway Trail project. The good news is that we did also receive additional information that for fiscal year 22 and beyond, we did receive a pinch more amount of federal funds. They did release an update to that. So that funding was also included in the reallocation last month. It was almost a wash between the amount that we allocated to the Sagamore Parkway Trail and the new funds that we have just received. We have gone through the public participation process, initially notifying the general public. We also had our public hearing, the CPC meeting back in March. And the TIP document is the same format as we had in the past. It includes specific information of how we notify the general public about the Transportation Improvement Program and all the key steps or actions and decisions that are taken during the process. We have a review of environmental justice, ADA, complete streets, a red flag or early environmental review, how we allocated our federal funds through a financial plan. We have performance measures. We have a section regarding city bus. And then all the public comments that we have received are actually documented in one of the appendix in the back. The Federal Highway Administration has made comments to the TIP document, and we have submitted those back through NDOT to them. There was one comment specifically that was not quite understood, so we did receive clarification last week through NDOT staff in Indianapolis, and that was regarding performance measures. They wanted that section to be a little more specific, so we did beef up that section, and specifically there was a table they wanted to see regarding the performance measures. There's basically 4 of them versus the projects that are programmed. We did update the document, and we also included in both the local project list and the state project list. For each project, we listed what performance measure those projects addressed. So we feel that not only did we address the specific comment, but that actually did more than what they were looking for. Of course, we presented this last month to the Technical Transportation Committee, and they recommended adoption. And we are asking for your recommendation as well. If we do receive any additional comments from the Federal Highway Administration or NDOT, we will then bring those back to both the Technical Transportation Committee and then also this board. So we're asking for your approval at this time.
All righty, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution T-2021-07, resolution to adopt the fiscal year 22-26 Transportation Improvement Plan.
So moved, Murtaugh.
Second, Jackson.
Motion is seconded. Go ahead and take a roll call for approval. John Dennis, aye. Tom Murtaugh,
Aye.
Peter Bunder,
Aye.
Jackson Bogan,
Aye.
Jane Spears,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
and Ben.
Aye.
Motion is passed unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the APC Progress Report, and this will be Doug. It'll start with the MPO update and end with the 18-month letting list. Take it away, Doug.
I think the first one's regarding the thoroughfare plan.
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
that's Tim.
Yeah, well, actually, one thing before we get into that, that is a little bit of a leftover from the last item that maybe I'd like to have Doug mention because this came up just this week. But it seems there's a situation with when the STIP is going to be adopted and how that might potentially mean that we have kind of 2 TIPs running at the same time. So maybe Doug, just if you could kind of give a little more information to the committee about that situation.
Sure, I'd be more than glad to. As you know, not only do we produce a transportation improvement program, but NDOT does as well, called the State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP. They are running a tad bit behind their normal schedule. They just recently completed all of their public meetings and will be submitting their draft document to Federal Highway and the Federal Transit Administration for their review, and they anticipate to do that in the next week or two. They are anticipating that the review will take place in 2 to 3 weeks. And if they do get any comments or questions, that will delay the adoption. And if that delay occurs, then we will still have to work under the 2020 to 2024 TIP. That will still be the official TIP, even though we adopted the new one. We hope that the adoption does go quickly, and once the new STIP is adopted, our new TIP will be adopted hopefully shortly thereafter. So I think that covers that.
Okay. So who's going to cover the UPWP NDOT approval?
Well, we still haven't quite done the pros and cons of using mountable curbs yet. We went back over that one, so I have to cover this first, Mayor.
Okay, have at it.
Yes, so I see that Stu Klein is on the call, and I want to bring him in just a second to kind of give you a little bit of some more background on this. But basically, the situation is that for a long time, we've had different standards for using or what type of curbs we allow in the cities versus out in subdivisions in the county. So Stu kind of came to us and said, well, you know, maybe we should look at this and put together a kind of pros and cons list of what would happen if we change the county's standards to match the city's standards. So Stu, maybe did you want to speak from your perspective on why you wanted us to investigate this issue?
Stu?
Hang on, I'm coming.
All right.
Anyway. Well, my full recollection was it kind of started with trees. There was a discussion of a tree ordinances. And because we allow, and I believe Lafayette has the same thing in their spec where we allow a mountable and a barrier curb in developments, we also have a stipulation that we do not allow trees behind that mountable curb because it's within the clear zone, it's a safety situation. And that kind of generated a discussion of what are the various standards, and Tim can correct me. I think we landed on that our standard allows both, the Lafayette standard allows both current, and West Lafayette is the restrictive curb situation. And then as we got into it further and said, you know, talked about taking this to the policy board at some point, he said we really feel like there needs to be some prepping, obviously, in advance of any kind of vote. And so Tim started developing the pros and cons and worked with some people in our office, and I'm not sure who all he coordinated with. The document kind of stands on its own. There's benefits as to safety, ADA, the fact that you could put trees behind it in a shorter clear zone, and then you can read the document and discuss for yourselves, but there are disadvantages, a lot of it associated with basically costs to developers and inspection, and it is a more elaborate system. So it's kind of my take.
Yeah, thank you, Stu. So just to kind of jump back in on that, we did distribute this list with the packet, and just to highlight a couple of things. So with regard to design, if you have the non-mountable curbs, that really allows for a lot more control of where drives can and can't be at the design stage, or the planning stage of a subdivision, especially. So that kind of gives a little more control in terms of access. And sustainability, as Stu mentioned, certainly there are a lot of benefits with being able to have more tree lawns and so on put in subdivisions in the county. Drainage, there are certainly a lot of advantages to how well these types of curbs drain. But then, like Stu said, there are also some cons to this. Cost and time are probably two of the biggest issues that would come up, especially during initial construction of the subdivision, as well as requiring some additional inspections for drives when they're put in. The county highway department estimated that if we went to non-mountable curbs, that would increase the number of site visits that would be required to inspect that by an average of 2 site visits per driveway cuts. So that certainly would be a significant consideration on that end. And then we have a few notes here at the bottom. So the use of non-mountable curbs gives the most benefit in locations where sidewalks or trails abut the curb, also on internal collector streets without driveway connections. So again, we're looking kind of subdivisions mostly. Streets with restricted parking, streets with trees, and locations of platted no vehicular access. So what we wanted to do today was to kind of get some initial thoughts from you guys, the elected officials, on this sort of thing, because before we would move forward with this would require, a change in the county's standards. So we wanted to get your input on this. One last thing I wanted to mention is that whatever happens today, we don't need to take a final vote on this, because we still want to take this to the development community to see what their thoughts are on this. We want to give them a chance to give some feedback on this before we adopt any kind of new standards. But what we want from you guys today is just to see if this is something we want to move forward with, or do we want to say, well, we think maybe some of these benefits don't outweigh the costs and the cons, so maybe we just cut this from consideration now and don't even bother taking it to the development community. So I'd be interested in hearing anyone's thoughts on that.
I know I have heard from a couple of representatives from the development world here in Tippecanoe County, and they have some real concerns, mostly in regard to additional costs for those potential new standards. In addition, I know County Highway has some significant issues with trees in those areas between sidewalks and the road. Obviously, as those trees grow, they buckle sidewalks, they hinder snow plowing and other issues. So I know we have some significant concerns. I'm glad you're not asking for a vote today, because that would be a huge concern. But I think we should just take this under advisement and consider maybe at our next meeting whether we move it forward at that point.
Well, I know in West Lafayette, we have a lot of them anyway, and we're predominantly neighborhoods and treetops. So, a lot of the design work that gets done here usually gets that particular type of guidance anyway. So because they exist, obviously we support it, but obviously this is a bigger picture than just West Side. So.
And from the Lafayette side, I would agree as well. And I would support just letting us kind of massage this a little bit, and just kind of like think this through a little bit. So from the Lafayette side, and I'd like for Tony to be able to take a look at it too.
Yeah, of course. I think that seems very fair. And again, part of the reason why we're doing it this way is we know that this would be a significant change. So that's why we're kind of trying to introduce it now to give you guys some time to look over it, to hear from constituents and so on, so that we make sure that, you know, we're not making any rash decisions. We just kind of wanted to provide this document today to give you guys a baseline and some information as to what we're considering, why we're considering it, and you know what the concerns are.
Very good. Questions for Tim on this? All right, keep on going.
Okay, so then the next item is regarding the UPWP. So we did get our UPWP adopted at our last meeting, and we did get NDOT approval on that. Now, one thing that is a little different than has happened in the past is that City Bus has a planning project that we need to include in the UPWP, which was not included in the version that was approved by NDOT. So we're going to need to do an amendment for that. So we've started to look into the process for that, and we should have something for you guys regarding an amendment next month. So I just wanted to let you know, A, that it had been approved by NDOT, which is good, and B, that we do need to get this city bus planning project in there, and we will have some more specific details about that next month. And at that time, we'll be asking for your approval of amending that project into the UPWP. So wanted to give you a heads up on that. Are there any questions?
Okay, next is federal funding obligations.
That will be from me. This is Doug again. As reported the last month that all of our fiscal year 2021 federal funds have been obligated, which is good. We did make the deadline, so we're well underway. And kind of interesting to look at all of the other MPOs and their status is that 8 of the 14 have obligated all of their funds. The rest of them pretty much are either at some kind of level, whether it be 80% and higher or 90% and higher. Surprisingly, even though it's late in the game, the Terre Haute MPO has only obligated roughly 8% of their federal funding, and Bloomington is only at 46%. So I'm not sure what's happening with them, but once again, we have obligated all of our federal funds for fiscal year 2021.
That's good. That's growth. Bike to Work Day.
That will be me, as well as the next one. Well, it's time to dust off your bicycles, whether they be in the garage or storage. It is National Bike Month, and we are going to have a celebration ceremony coming up, not this coming Friday, but the following Friday on the 21st, excuse me, and that is a Bike to Work Day. It will be held on the John Myers Bridge starting at 7:30, and roughly at 8 o'clock, a proclamation will be presented and read from the two cities and county. The ceremony and event will also have free coffee. It will have some healthy snacks, emphasize healthy, and then also drawings for gift cards and thing for your bicycles. Basically, this started surprisingly back in 1956. So this event has been held here locally for many years, and we hope on the 21st everybody can make it out to the event.
Very cool.
And then going on to the next project, the Big 4 Trail. This is a very exciting project. I'm glad to see this actually starting. Kind of give a little bit of history about this. Many of you may or may not have heard about the Farm Heritage Trail, and that trail was supposed to connect Indianapolis to Lafayette using the old Big Four corridor, which fairly extensively over the 3 counties have been abandoned. The counties to the southeast of us, Clinton and Boone, and then all of the small towns and cities in those 2 counties have been constructing portions of that trail. And if I remember correctly, the last 2 remaining portions that do not have a hard surface did receive funding earlier this year from the Next Level Trails program. So maybe next year, if you would like to travel from the town of Colfax to Indianapolis, you can, using the Big Four trails, what they call it now. So the next step is actually to look at what's going to happen with that trail in Tippecanoe County and extend it northward. And this project is actually doing that. The city of West Lafayette applied for special funds from the Indiana Department of Health to put together a master plan for this, and the city of Lafayette and West at Tippecanoe County has joined in. So the 3 of them are actually jointly working on this, have hired a consulting firm, BF&S, to look at this, and they're using Health by Design to have or hold their public hearings. We've already had one stakeholder meeting several weeks ago, and the first public open houses were held just a little bit ago, actually, from noon to 1, and then last night. Fairly well attended, and in looking at both of them, there was a lot of good comments. A public survey will be rolling out either later this week or early next week for anyone to take that to give additional information, which will be concluded at the early part of June. And then after that, additional public open houses will be held when the draft document is prepared. We're looking at possible routes right now of how to route the trail through the county and the cities. And then also what kind of amenities, what do we want to, or what do the public would like to see along the trail. Very exciting project, and I hope at some point that this does occur. So an exciting project going on right now.
That's pretty cool stuff. Thanks, Doug. Now the NDOT 18-month letting list.
And that's me again. As you can see on the screen, we have a bunch of information. The first 4 projects were let this past April. The specific information is on page 2 and page 3. The State Road 38 ADA sidewalk ramp construction project was awarded to Milestone Contractors, and the estimated completion date is September 25th of 2021. The debris removal on State Road 38 was also awarded. The estimated completion date is actually, and I need to double check this, but this was on the web, April 15th, 2021, which I know that's not right. My guess is April 2022, but could have been a typo on the web. And then the third project was 38 again, went to Reith Riley. This is on the one side of the town of Dayton. And then the other project was pavement patching on US 231. That project award is actually pending. The 5th project that was originally on the April schedule was actually a pavement patching project on I-65. That has been actually moved to the May letting, which actually happened on the 5th. That project was awarded. There were 2 bidders. It went to Reith Riley, and the cost of that was actually $1.673 million. And then speaking of which, looking down on the other project in May, the traffic signal modernization, this is for various traffic signals throughout the district. That project, there was only 1 bidder, went for Michiana Contracting at just under $700,000. Looking down the list, we have a new project, number 8, a district-wide bridge maintenance project that's on an August letting. And looking further down, starting with project 15, that's part of the I-65 widening. This will be occurring north of the Wabash River bridges to approximately County Road 725 north. And then looking on page 2, we have another project, I-65 small structure, a new one. And then, of course, we see 29, 30, and 31 projects that were changed. And I already mentioned the Sagamore Parkway Trail. That is on a January bid letting. And then we have 2 new district-wide projects, one for rumble strips and the other one for ITS program, one for a February 2022 letting and the other one for a March 2022 letting. Are there any questions?
Questions for Doug? All right, thanks so much, Doug. Really appreciate it. Now on to any other business. Is there any other business today? All right, next is citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments?
I don't currently see anything on YouTube.
Mayor, we're probably going to want to wait just a minute, just in case someone might have a comment, since there is a bit of a delay with the stream.
Okay, I'll go ahead and give it another 30 seconds. Okay, did anybody get any notification of citizens' comments?
Nothing on YouTube.
All
And
right.
nothing on Facebook either.
All right, very good, thank you. Anything else for today? Hearing nothing, I'll move to adjourn.
So moved, Murtaugh.
Got a
Murray,
second?
second.
All right, been motioned and seconded. We are adjourned. See you next month on June 10th for our next meeting. Thank you all.